The start of the International Space Station began with a launch on November 20th, 1998, when the Russian Zarya control module lifted off atop a Russian Proton rocket from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan and into orbit. This was followed on December 4th, 1998, when Space Shuttle Endeavour on the STS-88 mission lifted off from Cape Canaveral, Florida, with the Unity Node 1 module, which was joined to the Zarya module. It would not be until November 2nd, 2000, before the first crew of 2 Russian cosmonauts and an American astronaut arrived. Since that day, the International Space Station, or ISS, has been continually manned by over 281 astronauts and cosmonauts from 22 countries. The ISS, in its 25th year of manned service, was not expected to last forever and has been showing its age, and the time has come for its forced retirement that has been set for the year 2030. NASA, as a next step, outlined its post-ISS goals in low Earth orbit last week, as it prepared for retirement and to maintain a continuous presence in space. The NASA vision for the post-ISS time period is called the Low Earth Orbit Microgravity Strategy and is a collaborative effort with its international and commercial partners. NASA sees a role for its astronauts to be continuously in low Earth orbit, or LEO, but will not be creating or managing a new space station, but is envisioned to lease space on an existing, most likely commercial space station. This is an expansion of its commercial partnerships to the ISS as it pays private companies, such as SpaceX, Northrop Grumman, and Boeing, for resupply missions to the ISS, and pays SpaceX and Roscosmos for seats aboard their manned spacecraft to the ISS. Boeing and Sierra Space may have a future role as well. NASA provided a statement that its initiative was meant to provide continuous human presence in low Earth orbit, boost economic opportunities, and strengthen global partnerships. This very government-sounding statement does not provide a lot of details on NASA's goals, but subsequent statements by NASA Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy offer some insight on what NASA is thinking beyond this statement. First, NASA has a goal to maintain a continuous manned presence for its astronauts in low Earth orbit, similar to what they have done with the International Space Station, ISS, for nearly 25 years. Continuous presence in LEO will give NASA the opportunity to give their astronauts experience as it prepares for actual NASA-led and managed missions, such as going back to the Moon and possibly Mars. The experience gained will help NASA prepare its astronauts for long-duration spaceflight and gain experience in operations around the Earth, which may be needed for future missions beyond the Earth. This will most likely include some form of Earth orbit rendezvous, where spacecraft components would be assembled in low Earth orbit for their eventual destinations beyond Earth. The experience of long duration for its astronauts and experience in low Earth orbit operations will be skills that NASA would want to not only keep, but to grow as more complex missions are being planned for the Moon and Mars. Earth orbit operations is where NASA can test its new technologies and procedures prior to committing them to part of more distant missions. It is more cost-effective to test them in orbit, especially as commercial spaceflight options are increasing and creating downward pressure on costs to orbit costs than trying a new technology or procedure while in lunar orbit. The days of Gemini and Apollo are over, and NASA is much more risk-averse and much more cost-restrained, so as much pre-work that can be done in LEO would meet NASA's safety and budget goals. NASA's director of the ISS, Robin Gatens, stated that LEO will still be a hub of scientific discovery, technological advancement, and international cooperation, which are largely overstated from the NASA point of view, as the goals stated above are the most likely ones for NASA. We can expect most of the commercial companies NASA expects and encourages to launch space stations to orbit to drive the economic benefits of space, such as microgravity-only technological development. NASA will also want to develop technologies or provide grants for research, but commercial interests will drive most technology and manufacturing innovation due to their more diverse objectives than NASA, which is limited to what Congress funds. NASA will provide guidance for what it would need in a commercial space station, as stated in the reasons mentioned earlier, and that would include the need for an infrastructure to provide a consistent and reliable way to send crews to LEO and resupply them for long-duration stays. It can be expected that commercial companies will be receptive to NASA's input, as it can be expected in the short to mid-term that a government contract will be needed to supplement the cost of creating and operating a space station. NASA and the FAA will also still be influential in flight testing and manned space requirements, so those who pay the piper call the tune, so to speak. This won't always be the case, as well-funded companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin have objectives that go beyond those of NASA. As the cost of launching goes down, as Falcon 9 has done, and is expected to go down as New Glenn and the Starship programs come online, the influence of NASA could be expected to decrease as more opportunities will be made available as the costs of orbit decrease. NASA will be influential in the post-ISS world, as it provides guidance on what it would like to replace it and the goals it wants to achieve in LEO. This is what was envisioned when NASA started using commercial companies to develop manned LEO capabilities and ISS resupply. Commercial companies would assume responsibility for the more established aspects of low Earth orbit, LEO, space operations, while NASA would concentrate on exploring beyond Earth and developing innovative technologies. NASA's budget will restrict the horizon of new technologies it can develop, and companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin will either develop their own technology goals or provide low-cost options to space, so other companies to develop technologies using Blue Origin, SpaceX, or other companies' lift capabilities. It is clear that the U.S. LEO future is driven by commercial opportunities and innovation beyond NASA's capabilities.